Hi everyone, it's Alia or Cake Legend, and I'm back with another cake decorating tutorial. Today we're making this Monster High Sweet 16 themed birthday cake that I made for my sister's Sweet 16 this year. She requested this design specifically. If you don't know what Monster High is, it was basically this huge franchise that was really big when I was growing up. They made tons of webisodes that were available to watch online. They made quite a few animated movies, and of course they sold tons and tons of dolls. Fashion dolls specifically. They had so many characters that got so many different outfits. Every time a new movie came out, each one got a new look. It was wonderful. And if you didn't guess already, the concept is that these are high school teenagers that are monsters. Some of them, the sons or daughters of famous monsters that you would know of, like Frankenstein, Dracula, Medusa. And I know Monster High has had a very recent reboot where they made a live action movie and now there's a new animated series, but we don't talk about that in this household. My sisters and I are forever biased to the original series that we grew up with. So, one of the main characters, Draculaura, who is the daughter of Dracula, has a movie where she is having her sweet 1600 birthday party, and the doll came with this cake. And my sister basically just wanted me to recreate that cake. So, as you can see, I am masking both of my cakes in this pastel pink buttercream, just doing a smooth finish. I had a 6-inch cake and then a 4-inch cake to put on top of it. I'm not going to go over how to stack a 2-tier cake because I actually have a tutorial on that you can find in the top right hand corner if you need it. But basically I put all my supports in my bottom tier and then I chilled it. Then I grabbed the top tier, which was also chilled, and put it on top. And then put a huge dowel through the middle to keep it all together. The next step was adding that drip, and I was a little unsure how to go about this drip at first because, as you can see, it's not very drippy looking. It doesn't go very far down the cake, and I didn't know how I could really do that with chocolate without it looking sloppy. So I decided to use some white ganache, which as you can see has this thicker texture, and I felt like it might work pretty well. I just had to dye it black to match the cake. I heated it up a little bit so that it was a little runnier, but still not runny enough that it would just continue to drip down the sides. And when I went in with my piping bag, I also tried not to squeeze too much. The bottom tier honestly turned out fine on the first try. As you can see, I would just squeeze a bit where I wanted a drip to go, but I wouldn't do too much. And I was really hoping the ganache would kind of just like settle itself out so it didn't look so gloopy and textured. I wanted it to kind of smooth itself out. But you know, things don't always go the way that you want them to, and that's okay because this was just a cake for our family, so it wasn't that big of a deal. When I was happy with the drips, I piped more ganache onto that gap and went in with an offset spatula to just flatten it out. And then I moved on to the top tier. I did forget though to move my camera angle so that you could actually see me doing the top drip. But it's fine because I ended up scraping that drip off anyways since I didn't like it. I was getting a little bit picky. Some of the drips were just too long and some were too short, and some had too big gaps in between them. Like, there was so much space, so I was like, oh, maybe I can just add a couple more, but you just gotta leave it alone once it's done because it's not gonna look good. It's not gonna blend together despite my efforts of trying to make it look as natural as possible. I don't know if you can tell since my hand is right in the way, but you'll see. I'm not happy with it, and then I decided to scrape it all off. But before I decided to scrape, I went in with this Wilton tip number 8, just a small round tip, and the same pink buttercream so I could add a border to hide that seam where the ganache meets the top tier. And I also did a border at the base. Unfortunately though, this made it a lot more difficult for me when I was scraping the drip because now I had to avoid the border as well. And you can kind of see here how the drips got very ugly very fast because I was also getting annoyed by the fact that the drips are so thin and on the toy they look so much thicker and bigger, but I guess it can't look exactly like a plastic toy. So here I am scraping off that ugly drip, just trying to get all that ganache off without destroying the border that I just piped, because if I wrecked that border, then I would wreck the bottom drip and then I'd have to scrape that and basically start all over again. And I really did not want to do that. So I was just extra careful, and then I added more buttercream and very carefully smoothed it out. And here we go with take 2 of the ganache. Let this just be a lesson to everyone that things aren't always going to be perfect, and if you just keep trying to fix it, you might make it worse. So just be happy with things being a little bit imperfect. This time I was having a more open mind about the drip, and I had a lot more patience going into it, and I think it turned out much better. With the drip finally done, I moved the cake to the fridge and grabbed the fondant. I have 2 shades of pink here, a dark pink and a light pink, and then a little silicone mold so we can make the little bows that are going to go on the front. I also have this gum powder that helps dry out the fondant quicker, and a heart cookie cutter, along with some smaller heart cutters. And then of course our standard fondant tools, we have a rolling pin, a little X-Acto blade, and a ruler. I decided to start with the ribbons that go around the sides of each tier with the little bow in the front. So I rolled out that darker pink fondant nice and thin, and then I used the ruler and a wheel cutter, which I didn't put in the showing of the tools. But I used those things to cut a nice even strip of fondant to go around each tier. And then I know I showed a silicone mold that had a bunch of bows on it, but I actually ended up just making my own bows by rolling out the fondant thin again and then cutting out this weird shape where it's like a line and then it's round and then another line and then it's round again, and then you basically fold each side over itself and put another strip of fondant in the middle. I thought these just looked more cute and they popped and they kind of matched the toy a little bit better. So here I am now assembling these decorations on the cake. Since the buttercream is firmed up from the cake being in the fridge, I had to make the fondant sticky by just using a bit of water, and I carefully wrapped it around the sides, trying my best not to break it or stretch it. Then I used some more water to get the fondant sticky again so I could attach the bows to the front. You could also use some buttercream if you're a little worried, like I was, about the bow potentially falling off. Now this toy cake has a topper of like a little heart that says Sweet 1600, so I used a lighter pink fondant to try and replicate that. I just cut out a nice big heart and then I cut some smaller hearts to be like a little extra decoration. And to make this stand up on the cake, I just attached some lollipop sticks to the back using more fondant and more water. When it was dry, I applied some water to the edges of the heart on the front side so I could attach this snake of the same color fondant to be the little border. And then I used the light pink buttercream from before to do the writing in the middle. Using the same small round tip, I added some writing onto the board using the same buttercream but dyed black, and I added a couple little dots and things for decoration. The last step was just to add my toppers and the extra little hearts, and then the cake was done. Whenever I add a topper, I always mark where the holes are gonna be and then I poke them with another stick so that I don't accidentally break the topper when trying to force it into the cake. But here it is, all finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I know my sister really loved her cake. If there are any Monster High fans watching this video, please be sure to leave a comment letting me know what you think. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!